Hello, and welcome to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I'm Ryan Purvis, your host, supported by our producer Heather Bicknell. In this series, you'll hear stories and opinions from experts in the field, stories from the front lines, the problems they face and how they solved them, the areas they focused on from technology, people and processes, to the approaches they took that will help you to get to the grips with the digital workspace inner workings. So welcome, Alex, to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. Wouldn't mind just giving everyone an introduction to who you are and who you work for?
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for having me. Name is Alex Russell. I work for the EOH group of companies in a division called IOCO. And I work within a line of business of IOCO called Compute and Platform. And I am what one would say a digital workspace subject matter expert.
Well, since you're an expert, can you give us an idea, your definition of the digital workspace?
Remember, that's just a title, hey? So, yeah, I would say that, a best way to describe a digital workspace is a workspace which keeps you engaged, keeps you productive, and removes the friction that we traditionally experience from non-digital workspace environments.
Yeah, no, that friction is a big thing often. With COVID-19 and how things have affected South Africa, what have you seen changing in that regard?
I saw a report or a statement the other day, and they reckon that it's kind of accelerated the adoption of remote working by 10 years, and it was kind of brought it forward by 10 years, in terms of it being a standard practice in any business. I think historically it was always been an alternative to not being in the office. The alternative to having to get something done, and I really just don't want to get into the office. Where now it's kind of absolutely a way of life. Yeah.
I mean, what have you seen from your customers' point of view? I mean, are they now prioritizing it? I mean, they've had to prioritize because it was, reaction and affecting the lockdown, but are they actually doing it almost the right way now and going back to make sure it works properly, or is it still fighting fires?
So, we see, I see three phases to this sort of remote working becoming systemic in an organization. Kind of everyone thrown into this whole crisis mode of, oh my word, from 1 week to the next, it's literally a lockdown. You're going to have to go and look at your business continuity planning, and hopefully it stood up. And it really, everything was like, oh my word, everyone needs to move out of the office. And what they found is just, the remote, the business continuity planning just didn't stand up. Now we're kind of into this phase of it being, okay, it is a norm. It's part of what we do. And we're looking, organizations are really looking to drive more efficiencies out of what they experience in crisis mode and changing a lot of things. So potentially looking at increasing their remote working tool sets, looking at additional tool sets. And I think organizations are going to move into something which is they absolutely need to make remote working as productive as they traditionally felt they provide in a brick and mortar building. And for that, we're seeing customers really starting to look at accelerating a lot of their cloud services, because they know that this is going to need to be around as part of the way that they're going to do business. And then we're seeing customers saying, gee, I'm not getting great value out of that tool set. It's not going to scale for what I want to do. I need to look at other tool sets. So there's a lot of tire kicking going on. They're evaluating technology, looking at new ways of doing things. And I think those organizations that were more digitally fluid in what they were able to do prior to COVID have narrowed the gap. Those who haven't are finding the gap a hell of a lot bigger to close.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece. I mean, that tool enablement or the lack of scalability, I think there's a lot of business processes that don't work because you're no longer in an office. You mentioned some behavioral changes. Do you want to talk through some of those changes that you made?
Yeah, I think personally, personal behavioral changes, I think the need to be a lot more disciplined in the allocation of your time.
Yeah.
And what you're doing in that time. So it's all good to, I love Microsoft 365 analytics and the setting up of focus time. I mean, it's brilliant. It really understands my pattern and it gives you great insight. So for me, the insights that 365 was really giving me to say, geez, you're replying a little too quickly to emails, You're not effectively, setting your week up in advance. You kind of it's too close to the start of the week that it's kind of getting done. So are you prioritizing? And that's probably been like the last 6 months. And I'll tell you, just being a lot more selfish with my time.
Yeah,
because people will consume your time, and they'll consume it for their benefit, probably very necessary. But there are priorities and there aren't priorities. And I think that's the most important thing you for personal fulfillment, you need to do. But then again, you need to make yourself available.
Yeah.
You need to make yourself, because people do need you. People do need you to square things away, so you got to be on top of things. So, I'd definitely say I've become a lot more prudent with the utilization of my time and the allocation of that time itself. Yeah. And then I think one thing that this whole situation has really taught me is we've lost a lot of humanity in the way that we work at.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize what we weren't doing until this really, and I thought we were quite humane, but we weren't. We're quite robotic, really robotic in what we do and how we do it. And, you've got just that amount of time to do certain things. Sometimes why do we need an agenda? Let's just have a discussion about the things that actually matter a little bit more than what it is about getting this thing over the line. And the humanity for me is really hit home on the basis that I think having digital workspaces will bring humanity back into the way people have freed up time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you to a large extent. I think the integrated working has benefits where you can go and do something with the family, still be able to do a phone call or do the knowledge work you have to get done. But because you had the time with the family first, which you would have had to put off because you had to drive to an office or whatever, and be in an office to be in the office, it mentally probably wasn't doing you any good. Yeah. But now you get that positive vibe from, going, like we go to the beach on a good day on a Friday morning for an hour and a half, and then we drive home and then the day starts. But because you're out in the ocean and we see all that stuff and you come back, but Friday's a great day. It's just a chilled, you still got a lot of work done, but
yes,
mentally a good place. So
one thing I've found, and I've noticed from many of our employees, is this like whole employee experience.
Okay.
What COVID and not even COVID, just remote working, has. We rolled out a Citrix solution to our organization at the beginning of COVID, and we said, geez, 80 users really operationally needed this, from finance to procurement to logistics to sales, really needed the infrastructure to be able to operate remotely. Yeah. Because, all buildings were shut down, but we still needed to move kit around and we still needed to get things done. I tell you, 3 weeks into our lockdown, we had to go and increase the capacity to 150 odd users.
Yeah.
On the basis that, what we thought was a solution that stood up to business continuity, so a VPN for, so core users will use our Citrix environment. Non-core essential users can use VPN. And just these technologies, the VPN technologies didn't stand up, didn't stand up to the user experience because of the frustrations that were being built into employees. They just couldn't get things done because the VPN would drop. Connectivity, although fiber is in really every home to a degree, not all our employees have fiber in their home.
Yeah.
So they're utilizing LTE and that is dropping. Then we've got the great South African energy crisis, and you've got different areas that are just switched off because they need to do maintenance on lines and there's outages. So we had like a few pandemics actually going. And the one thing that we realized, and with feedback from our employees, was it was so different for them when they had the reliability of a workspace where they could just get things done.
Yeah.
Yes, one would say, if I have no internet connectivity, well, you're not going to do anything, given that as a challenge. But that's the one challenge, not the many challenges that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And just the frustration that was building up in our teams to say, I can't process the transaction quick enough, So just kind of moving the goalposts gave us the opportunity to really drive as productive employees remotely as they were inside. Yeah. And the difference we've seen is that, yes, we're getting more out of our employees, but they're not spending as long doing things that they would traditionally do. And having to search, like, geez, well, where's these file share? Which file share is it on? I can't connect to the file share. I don't know, just map it into your digital workspace. Yeah. And we're going to give you don't map your OneDrive there, and there you go. So, we also found that our users' digital dexterity has changed as well. Their ability to understand how to use these tools. Because you can give them everything, but they don't know how to use them. Well, they're not really that beneficial.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you? Because some of this technology has been around, 20 years, let's say, in different maturity levels and stuff. But the biggest problem has been the user adoption of them. And you mentioned sort of capacity doubling. A lot of those BCP plans are always based on a 50% capacity. So it's a thumbs up. Let's just make it 50% because we'll never use it.
Yes.
And now you're sitting in a situation where you've not only had to use it, but you've had to roll it out to more people than you thought you had to roll it out to. And I think a lot of investment that's been always cut off because we'll never use it has forced a few companies to maybe fold because they couldn't keep up. When it came to, I wanted to ask you about your end user experience or your employee experience. How are you capturing their feedback? Was it surveys and that, or was it support calls?
So it was a combination of a few things. One is we actually opened a Teams channel that was, you don't need to log calls via the help desk because the real time, the necessity to just know that someone was there. We just opened a Teams channel, and we've actually kept it open, funny enough, even though the call levels have gone down. And we found that the frustration in the users was far less, because it wasn't another step to log a call, wait for a response, and that it was like, hey, instantaneous, the communication, I've got an issue, it passed on to an engineer monitoring this channel, and they could get resolved because of that real timeness. We still have some users who do the right thing, and they go and log a call, and the turnaround on that calls. And what we found is initially the spike in the calls was, I can't get system access. And I find my machine is running too slow, And we found that a lot of the telemetry that was being given to us was their interpretation of what the issue was.
Yeah.
So the user says that that's what it is. Well, then you're going to kind of log the call and you're going to get to them. As we started to move them into this digital space, we kind of could bucket to say, well, hey, we're not getting my machine slow. It's like, hold on, this application is slow.
Yeah.
That kind of helped our teams to kind of beeline to exactly where the challenge was. So I think we're in the infancy of utilizing, I think, the benefits of this whole digital experience monitoring tool set in a more effective and fluid way that gives us a lot more insights predictably, that then allow us to automate a few things that drives a better experience for the user. I think that's definitely our next evolution of the workspace for our users. Is we're now seeing a good trend in terms of utilization and supportability and just our overall performance. What we're looking to do now is to say, well, what else is the system is telling us? And how can we make things more predictive for us, but also have that better experience for the user?
Did you have something in place to do the monitoring of the system they were using? I mean,
yeah, so we used Systrack internally to give us that insight. And again, I think tools are all good. It depends on how people use them. And we've had one or two users who kind of gravitated towards the tooling from a help desk point of view and really drew that insight out of the tool set itself. And others kind of, they've just got 4 or 5 calls and they just don't know where to go, and they've got everyone screaming, so they're kind of, maybe going down a rabbit hole a little bit, but they're trying their best to get this call resolved. And we found that those individuals that were using the insights from a lakeside point of view were far more effective in getting through more calls, were far more effective in delivering a call, closing a call quicker, and eventually would be giving some insight back into our Citrix team to say, guys, these users are experiencing issues around their profiles loading. You need to have a look at it.
When a user would complain about an issue and give you their sort of version of what was going on, did the data coming out of something like Systrack match up, or was it complementary? That's probably why.
I think when the user when the user made the right call of what the issue was, it correlated, because they would kind of look at exactly where that issue is, a slow disk or whatever it might be. When a user didn't get it right, it kind of had to be a bit more of a troubleshooting and kind of a delay, like, hold on, I need to look at your system and interrogate some of the information, and then I need to create correlation to, okay, I can see where the issue is. It's not actually that. It's something else that we need to look at.
Okay. And what are you seeing now with, you said this is your next evolution, the sort of digital experience monitoring. Well, what is your next thing? Is it internal focus first, or are you going to start going out to customers with an offering?
No, so I think we're now packaging this in an as a service offering to take to market. We've launched a new marketplace, a digital marketplace, where we're going to launch our as a service offerings through, and our core workspace, we're calling it core workspace, is going to be launched through our marketplace. And if it's good for us, I'm sure out there it's good for many of our customers and potential customers that we will look to attract there.
Okay. And are you looking outside of Africa? I mean, to global customers as well, or is this really a South African solution? I
think we're localized a little bit more on the basis that, we do as an organization have a footprint in Switzerland. We have a footprint in the UK, but they're not to the full extent as our local organization are. And the routes to market and channels to market are more suited to certain types of products and development and enterprise applications, rather than necessarily digital workspaces. But the beauty about what we're creating now with our as a service core workspace offering is the ability to drop a pod down into some other locations and to centrally manage and support it in a way that drives the cost of the solution down. It can also segue into other markets. We most certainly haven't captivated or captured our market here. So I think we will spend a little more time refining our solution and getting it adopted locally before we take it into other markets.
So is that something you're going to release soon? We can always get a link in the show notes when it's launched.
Yeah. So we've just finished we started a new financial year. So the part of our investment strategy is around our as a service model. So within the next quarter, we will have that up, and we'll definitely be sharing that with you guys.
Oh, sounds good. I think we're probably tied up there, unless there's anything else you wanted to comment on.
No, I think all good from my side. Hey?
Great. Where can people find you online?
Oh, I'm on most so traditional LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Alex Russell, and on Twitter, my handle is @SmartAccess. That's SmartAccess, and that's pretty much my digital mediums.
Cool. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you, Ryan, and appreciate your time. And good luck. I love the work you guys are doing, man.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Heather Bicknell is our producer and editor. Thank you, Heather, for your hard work on this episode. Please subscribe to the series and rate us on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Follow us on Twitter @the DWW Podcast. The show notes and transcripts will be available on the website www.digitalworkspace.works. Please also visit our website www.digitalworkspace.works and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you found this episode useful, please share with your friends or colleagues.